she had told me that Zachary had shot her in the hand with a BB gun.
Okay.
And I confronted Zachary about it, and I asked him, and he said, well, it's none of your business what goes on here.
You can have a seat there. Grab my folder real quick. I apologize. I'm trying to write too many notes here because I can't
Yeah, it's okay.
write here well, so. It's not real pretty either. I'll tell you that.
You're practicing for when you go to med school.
Is that what
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
I thought you just meant you had bad. I didn't even.
Oh, no. No, it was bad before, but it's really bad
Is
now.
that carpal tunnel or
No, I fractured my wrist.
Oh my
actually,
gosh.
So
in the line of duty?
it was in training. So just a freak thing that happened.
Wow.
So. Okay. Before we really get started, I usually start out and I try to get updated information because it's been a while since I've really talked with you.
Yep.
And usually just address, phone numbers, that kind of stuff. So I know you're living in Lima now, correct? Okay. Where you living at there?
It's on 803 Fairview Avenue.
What's the zip there?
45804.
Okay. And phone number?
419.
This is your cell?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
371 9370.
Okay. You have a house number?
Just
Working anywhere? School? Maybe? Okay. All right. And at this point, what I was going to do is, I know you wanted to come in here and talk voluntarily. You have your attorney with you. Unless you want to waive it or something, I was still going to read her rights, just because you were under indictment and everything. So that way you understand everything, what the rights are and whatnot. So let me grab that here real quick. And 2 copies, which you will see that enough to follow along if you need to. Okay. Excuse me. Before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to the advice and presence of a lawyer, even if you cannot afford to hire one. If you wish a lawyer, you're going to pay for one, you apply to the court, one will be appointed for the CASHAPP charge to you. It's not really going to apply right here since your attorney's sitting next to you. If you wish to answer questions without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering anytime. You have the right to stop answering questions anytime. You also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer. Okay. Again, some of this isn't going to apply because your attorney is right here, but just so that you understand what your rights are with an attorney and that. So, okay, you understand those rights? Can you read the waiver out loud back to me, please?
I have read the statement of my rights shown above. I understand what my rights are. I'm willing to answer questions and make a statement. I do not.
And that one we're going to asterisk. Or have you initial, if you would, just initial next to that one, since your attorney is.
And if you have any questions about anything, you can just ask me.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I understand and know what I'm doing. No promises or threats have been made to me, and no pressure of any kind has been used against me.
Okay. You understand all that?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about that for me or Cindy?
Actually, about the threats part,
Okay.
does that mean like outside of this or like anybody or I'm like kind of curious on that one.
Okay. No promises or threats have been made to me and no pressure of any kind has been used against me.
Okay.
They're referring to the police,
Oh,
law
okay,
enforcement,
okay,
judicial system, but they're referring to us.
no.
That
Right.
we're not pressuring you to
Okay.
make, a statement or have not threatened you that you have to make a statement.
Right.
I don't know if you want to expand on that as her attorney,
Well,
but it's,
I think she's gotten some threatening comments from people in the community, and that's what she.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was talking about. Like if it meant that or something else. So.
okay. That what you have to understand is it's voluntary. You coming
Right,
in here to talk.
right, yeah.
That we are not forcing you to or
Yes.
threatening you or pressuring you to.
Mhm.
So as long as you understand that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. If you're still willing to talk, anything else? Put your signature on this line, and then if you could print your name there. Cindy, can I get you to sign underneath there? I can't. It's just not getting any better.
Actually, your handwriting with your left is better than a lot of people with their right. So
That's scary. Okay. Jen, what's the highest level of education you have?
12th, I graduated.
Graduate? Okay. Where'd you graduate from?
Findlay Ohio.
Okay. All right. So, what is it that you would like to talk about, Shannon?
Well, when I came in here the first 2 times, I was obviously living with the Brooks family, and I was feeling very threatened by them, and I was feeling very unsafe. And I wasn't able to say everything I wanted to say because they threatened me every time I would leave. If I talked to you guys, then I would end up next, or they would hurt me or something, and that scared me, so I kind of didn't say everything. So I just kind of wanted to, I wanted to say everything now that I knew, and I actually want to go back to when I actually first moved in.
Okay.
From what I seen and what I heard, and it's been haunting me since I moved out. And when they told me that I would be able to talk to you guys again, I took the chance at it because I knew I wasn't with them and I was safe now and they couldn't hurt me. So
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to, tell everything now that I knew, and what Sherry had said and everything that she did and everything, and
Okay.
so
Okay.
anything that'll help.
Okay. So you want to start when you moved in?
Yeah, I can't remember, specific dates or times,
Okay.
but I can try
We'll do our best. See if
Yeah.
we can figure it out.
because it's been a while.
Okay.
So
So when did you move in?
I moved in the end of August of 2010.
Okay, and that was at what address?
300 Center Street, because
Okay.
they had just moved into the house. So
Okay.
we moved into there. It actually starts like when I first started going to their house, when I first started dating Michael.
Mm-hmm.
When they lived on County Road 220, that's when I first started seeing stuff. And it it shocked me in the beginning because I didn't think anyone, would be that mean or anything, but this was back in the end of July. I started going over to their house, and in the beginning, Vera seemed, happy, but not, the happy-go-lucky type person. She was sad in a way, and, I would always talk to her and ask her, things about her life and stuff and everything. And then one day I went over there and she was holding her hand like this, and I asked her what was wrong, and she moved her hand and she had a big black spot right there.
Mm-hmm.
And she had told me that Zachary had shot her in the hand with a BB gun.
Okay.
And I confronted Zachary about it, and I asked him, and he said, well, it's none of your business what goes on here. Mm-hmm. I backed out of it. I said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
So.
That was on Center Street or at the other place yet?
Out on 220.
Okay.
That was out there.
Okay.
And so, I kind of talked to her, trying to, see if she was okay, if she needed help or anything. And she told me, no, I'm fine, She said, I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'm used to it. And I said, well, you shouldn't have to live like that. And she said, well, if I leave, they'll take my daughter. And that was really her main concern, was her daughter. So, the next couple of days that I went over there, everything seemed fine. And then August 5th is when their brother, Punky, had passed away. I had seen Zachary snap. He went ballistic and he started throwing stuff, and he actually threw, I think it was a bottle, like a baby bottle.
Mm-hmm.
He threw it at Vera, and it hit her in the eye, and it had given her a black eye. And I told Zachary to calm down, and when I did, Sherry stepped in and said he doesn't have to calm down, his brother just died. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and I said, well, he just hit Vera, and she's like, oh, well, she'll get over it. And I didn't say anything because, Sherry scares me. And so I stayed out of it then. And then, when I moved in it was Punky's funeral on the 13th of August.
Mm-hmm.
I had showed up to their house that morning, and I seen Vera, and her face was all bruised up, and her face was all puffed up and everything. And I asked her what happened, and all she said was, I can't talk about it. And right then and there, I knew it had to have been Zachary,
Mm-hmm.
because he was the one that always, when I was around, that was the only one that was hitting her. And so I assumed it was Zachary, and then Zachary was laughing about it because he was sitting in the living room and he was talking about it and laughing like it was funny what happened, that he had hit her, and he was proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Sherry was a little edgy about it because, she tried to put makeup on her so it would cover the bruises and everything. But when they got to the funeral home, people actually seen it. And I know they did because they were all talking to her. And I kind of went in my own little corner, I guess, because I felt bad for her. And I told 3 people at the funeral home about it, and I'm not sure, if maybe they called the cops, or I know someone showed up later on for it, but I told a girl named Christy Restmeyer. I told a guy, Drew Nelson, and I can't remember the other person I told. I know it was those 2 that I told.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, things seemed okay, and I didn't go over there for a while because I was getting sick from their house. And so I stayed home for a while, and then Michael had asked me to move in with him, so I ended up moving in the end of August.
Okay.
And it was, I'm gonna say, a week maybe after we moved in, Zachary had gotten mad at Vera. Can't remember what it was for, but he had gotten mad at her, and he had thrown a hairbrush at her, Sherry's hairbrush, and it had hit her right here, and it had broke her nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed Vera and I took her in the bathroom, and I texted my friend Crystal, and I told her, you need to call the cops. I couldn't do it because if they found out that it was me, then I didn't know what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I told Crystal, you need to call the cops, Zachary just threw a hairbrush and broke her nose.
You actually saw that happen?
Yes.
Okay.
I seen it happen. I was in the living room. Zachary was in the doorway of this was on Center Street.
Okay.
Zachary was in the doorway of the kitchen in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And Vera was sitting on the floor in front of Sherry, wrapping her feet. And she had turned around because Zachary had said Vera really loud. She turned around, and the next thing you know, he's got a hairbrush and just throws it at her. And it hits her right here, dead in the middle. And her nose started swelling up real big, and she just, blood everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up, and I went, and I took her in the bathroom, and I cleaned her nose up and her face and stuff, and she always thanked me. So she said thank you, and I took her back in there, and as we were in the bathroom, I texted my friend, and I told her, you need to call the cops. Zachary just hit her in the face. And I'm not sure if she did or not. I can't remember if it was in August that they showed up or if it was later. But, so I'm not sure if she did, but then a couple months went by. And then in November, her daughter was walking because she just learned how to walk, and she was walking around this coffee table they had in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
And Vera was sitting on the love seat that was right by the table. Well, she had walked past Vera, and she had fell. And
Talking about Willadine?
Yeah, Willadine,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
And she fell, and she had hit her head really bad on the corner of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting in the living room. I seen it happen. Vera did not touch her.
Mm-hmm.
And Zachary had gotten upset, and he said that Vera pushed her.
Mm-hmm. And
that's all it took. Zachary went crazy, and he grabbed her by her throat, and he told her that he is not allowed to touch, or that she was not allowed to touch his daughter ever again. And he threw her on the ground, and he picked up Willadine, and she couldn't breathe, you know, the baby, she couldn't breathe. So he was patting her back and stuff, trying to get her to breathe, and then finally she could. Well, Vera had went into Sherry's room. Sherry had gotten mad, like Zachary. She stood up off of her bed, and she had grabbed Vera, and she's got long fingernails, Sherry does.
Mhm.
And she had started clawing at Vera's back, and Vera was just crying. And I wanted to do something, but, you know, I had a cup thrown at my face because I tried to get in it before.
Mhm.
And I actually had fractured my nose right here from it. So,
Who threw that at you?
Scotty, the oldest one,
Mhm.
he had threw it at me. And so, I guess that was maybe my warning to stay out of it from now on. I don't know. But I wanted to get up, and I wanted to do something so bad. And I seen Sherry do that, and I stood up and I told Sherry, you know, you need to stop. And then that's when Zachary came up to me and said, you need to stay out of it. So I said, okay. And I did. And then they left her alone for a while, and then Zachary went down the street to his Aunt Sam. They called her Samantha Schwab or something like that.
Mhm.
And she had come down, and next thing you know, she's telling Vera to go in her room. And
Samantha?
Samantha is telling Vera to go into Vera's room. And she does. She's laying on the bed, you know, and I was sitting on the couch, and I could, you know, just see slightly around the corner on her bed, and I couldn't see the whole thing, but Zachary, Chucky, Garth, and Sherry were all telling Samantha to punch her. Just punch her, you know, that's all they kept saying. Just hit her, get her now. You know, so Samantha punched her in the face, broke her nose again, for the second time that I seen. So the first time was Zachary, and then Samantha did it. So naturally, you know, her nose was big, and Samantha afterwards was being all nice to her and told her to go clean up, you know, wash her face, and then, you know, go in and watch TV like it never happened. And then, you know, the next day, Sherry had called or texted, I'm not sure. She called Crystal Ferguson to come over because she wanted to tell her something. So Crystal came over, and Sherry had told her what Vera supposedly had done. And Crystal started hitting her. And that took me away because that's not Crystal. She, as far as I've known her, you know, she's never done that. But she started hitting her. And so, you know, that one I stepped into because Crystal, she used to be my friend. So, you know, at that time I stepped in and I told her to knock it off.
Mhm.
She ended up hitting me. So I backed away, and Zachary and Garth and Chucky and Sherry were just sitting there laughing, and I was just in amazement. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I've never seen anybody, you know, be beaten in my life, you know. And so I sat there and I watched it, and I couldn't get to the phone because Sherry always had that phone in her hand. Always. Could never get to the phone. And my cell phone was out of minutes. I didn't have any minutes, and I didn't know if you could still use it if you had no minutes to call the cops or not. So I didn't know what to do, so she stopped finally, and she had left, and Vera was, you know, sitting on the floor all curled up in a ball with her hands like this. and her knees up to her chest, like she always did. And things cooled down during, Christmas and stuff, and then January, I think it was. I think that's when Children's Services was out there. Somebody had seen her or something, and Children's Services had came out to the house to check on Melody, and then the cops had showed up, and of course, Sherry was talking for Vera, telling the cops that it was some guy named Desmond something in Lima, her ex-boyfriend, who had beat her up and stuff because she had all the bruises on her face and everything. And I kept shaking my head no, hoping that the cop would see me shaking my head no, and they never looked at me. So it kind of went on, that it was someone else, but I think everybody knew better, that it wasn't some other guy. And then in February, Vera had picked up Willoughby because she was getting into something, and she picked her up to move her. Well, Zachary had caught her, and once again he had went off, and he had.
What do you mean he caught her?
He was in the living room, and she was in Sherry's room like she always was.
Uh-huh.
And Willoughby was getting into they had a box of clothes sitting by the TV in Sherry's room.
Mm-hmm.
And Willoughby was getting into the clothes and stuff, and Sherry had asked her to get Willoughby. I don't know if it was maybe to set her up or what.
Okay.
But she had asked her to get Willoughby to move her. So Vera, she usually does what she's told. So she grabbed her and she moved her and she gave her a kiss on the cheek, And Zachary had seen her picking her up, and he didn't like it because he told her she was not allowed to pick up his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And Vera said, I'm sorry, And Vera was sitting on the floor in front of Sherry again, and he had kicked her in the back of her head, and her head went forward like this, and she hit the front of her head on Sherry. So Sherry got mad at her, and she grabs her, and Vera tries to, move. She moved over by the TV, which was like across from the bed at the end of the bed. And Vera had moved over there, and Sherry had gotten up, and she grabs Vera by her hair, pulled her shirt over her head, like she was maybe trying to choke her or something. I wasn't really sure. And then once again, she takes her nails and she starts clawing at her back again, and she starts punching her in her back. And it took Zachary, Garth, and Kevin Sr. to get Sherry off of her. And I told Sherry, I was like, you guys really need to stop doing this. It's gonna kill her, I thought, you guys are gonna do something horrible. And I started crying. I was so scared, not only, for my life, but for Vera and for the baby. And after that, things started to slow down, but then towards the end of February, early March, like the beginning of March, that's when Chucky started getting involved in it. He would kick her in the back of her head. He would punch her, smack her, pull her hair. He cut her hair off once. He spray painted her hair. I couldn't stand it. And Chucky's small, so I thought, okay, I'll try and get in this one. But I was wrong. He's very mean. He punched me and he started calling me names. And he pushed me away and told me if I got in the middle of it, then I'd be next. Whatever that meant. So, after that, it came to, I had went to my aunt's house for 3 days, I think, for St. Patrick's Day. So I had left, and then I came home, and then on the 22nd, I believe it was the 22nd or 23rd, that's when Danny and Nicole had showed up. And the first, I'd say, day and a half, things were fine. You know, they paid no attention to Vera. Everyone left her alone. And then Vera had looked at Danny. Just one look is all it took, and all she did was just glancing back. Nicole got mad, and she had went in and asked Sherry if she could hit her. I said, come on, you guys. Don't, just leave her alone. And so Nicole had went in. She grabbed her by her hair, and she punched her pretty hard. And Vera at that point, she knew not to cry. She knew not to say stop. So she just kept quiet, and she just sat on the couch and let her do it. And Nicole had hit her maybe 5-6 times, and then
Where was she hitting her? What part of the body?
everywhere, pretty much. She was just, just taking swings at her, and she was just hitting her a couple times in the face, and then she'd go towards, her chest and her abdomen, and then her legs. And so then she finally stopped because Danny had told her to stop. And then, sorry, then they left her alone for the rest of the day, and then I'm gonna say the 24th, I think it was, or 25th, can't really remember. Danny and Nicole, and I think it was Zachary, Chucky, and Garth, and Scotty. They had all left, so it was just me, Vera, Sherry, Michael, and Kevin home. And Michael and Kevin were outside. They were fixing a bike, I think. And I was inside, and I had told Vera, I didn't really tell her. I started talking to her, and I asked her if she was okay, if she needed anything, and she said she was thirsty. So I got her some water, and she drank that, and Sherry looks at me, and she's like, why are you being so nice to her? She ain't worth it. And I said, you're wrong, she is, she's a good person. And Sherry said, no, she's not. She's only here because of that baby. And I said, I just shook my head. I didn't want to believe what I was hearing. That was her cousin. That was her family. And she said the only reason that Vera was there was because of the baby. If that baby wasn't there, Vera wouldn't have been there. And I told her, well, that was a poor excuse, And Sherry started yelling at me, calling me, all these names, and telling me that maybe she should have Zachary start hitting me every once in a while, then maybe I'd be better. And then, Michael had overheard her say that because he was walking up on the porch when she had said that. Michael had come in and said, you don't need to talk to her like that. She's not, a bad person. She's just doing what's right, and everything. And so Sherry had left me alone for a little bit. And then the next day, I was upstairs, I think. Yeah, I was upstairs, and all I heard was a big, loud scream, and I was like, "What the hell?" And
I've heard it.
yeah. So I'm like, I walked downstairs, and it was Vera. She was screaming, and I'm like, "What is going on?" She's holding her leg on her left side, and she's just sitting there holding it, and all I see is blood, and I'm just like, "Oh my god!" And she moves her hand, and Zachary had stabbed her in her leg, and that's when Zachary came up to me, and he had the knife. You know, he's like this in front of my face, and he's like, "You tell anybody, and I'll do it to you." So I didn't say anything, and I went over to Vera, and I grabbed the peroxide and the gauze and stuff, and I cleaned it up and everything, and Sherry tried to help us, you know, best she could. And she actually took her finger, Sherry took her finger, and she stuck it inside the wound right there. And Vera was crying because it hurt, and I said, "You need to stop doing that, it's hurting her." And she's like, "She'll live." And I'm just like, oh my god. So, you know, I finished helping her clean up and stuff, and putting the gauze and tape and stuff on. And Sherry had told her to go sit in the living room while she went to bed. It was middle of the afternoon. Sherry lays down, you know, she's sleeping like she always does. And, you know, so it's just me and Vera. And then Danny and Nicole and Chucky and Garth walk in. I don't know where they went or where they were coming from. They walk in, and Danny's yelling he got stabbed, you know. And he's got, I think it was 2 or 3 stab wounds on his leg. And he's all, you know, yelling and hollering and stuff. So Sherry wakes up, and they clean his leg up and everything, and things are back to normal, you know. No one's hitting anyone or anything, and then out of nowhere, Chucky goes in the kitchen, and he grabs the dish soap, and he puts it in a cup with water, and he brings it in, and at first he wanted me to drink it, and I said, "No, I know what that is." And he goes over to Vera, and he forced her to drink it. He put it up to her mouth, and she kept saying no. She kept shaking her head like this. And he opened, like, he went like this to her, and, you know, he pulled her face and made her drink it. And she runs in the bathroom, and she gets sick. And then he goes back into the kitchen, and he dumps the rest out, I guess, and everything. And Vera comes back in, and she's holding her stomach, and she says, "I don't feel good." And, you know, she starts crying a little bit. So I told her, you know, just sit on the couch. Just sit there. And I didn't know, you know, what to do, and because everyone was telling me, "Oh, you don't need to call poison control." So I don't know what to do when you drink soap, you know? So I was kind of scared. So, you know, I called poison control, and I got, like, this help machine thingy, and they told you what to do, like, if you drink soap or something, and all they say is drink a lot of water. So I went in and I got her a big glass of water, and I told her to drink it. It just made her more sick. I didn't know what to do, so I went to Sherry, and Sherry said, "Well, she'll be fine, just let her sit there." I'm just like, oh my god. I did not know this family, and I regret it sometimes, but, you know, after Chucky had done that, he had went down to Samantha's house or something, and then they finally left her at home, and then the day of the 26th shows up, and I got up, you know, like every Saturday, went to the food giveaway with Kevin, Scotty, and Michael. And we had come home 10 something like that. And those Friday and Saturday, Sherry had Punky's son, which is Little K. She had him, and so I had put both of them in the high chairs, Little K and Melody, and I gave them a cupcake and something else, I forget, cereal or Pop-Tarts or something. And then Zachary was asleep on the couch. Danny and Nicole were upstairs. Chucky was upstairs, Garth was upstairs. So, as soon as, we had the babies in the high chair and stuff, Zachary wakes up and everything, and Vera's in Sherry's room, wrapping her feet, like always. And for no reason, Zachary just gets up, goes in there, and kicked her in her side, where her kidney is, or something. And then Danny and Nicole come downstairs, and by that time, I had the two kids out of the high chair, and I was giving, I think it was Willie, and I gave it back to first. I took her in the bathroom to give her a bath, brought her out, got her dressed, and then I gave the other one a bath and got him dressed. And everyone's awake at that time, they're all awake and yelling and everything else just for no reason, I guess. And so I had the two kids in the living room, and then Danny and Nicole are in Sherry's room talking about something. I couldn't really hear what they were saying. And Kevin and Michael had left to go to Dollar General, I think. They went somewhere, I know that. And I was sitting on the couch, just watching the two kids run back and forth. And Vera was in Sherry's room, sitting by the TV where the dresser was. She was sitting there. And the next thing I know, Vera kept saying no. So I got up, I got up and I walked over, and all I seen was Nicole punching her. She just kept punching her. She wouldn't stop. And I found out why she was doing it is because Sherry had told Nicole that Vera supposedly had pushed Willie and tried to kill her. And Nicole she went off. And she had her on the floor, and she one punch after another. She just kept punching her in her side, her back, her head, her face. I can't find a word for it. And then Danny steps in, and he starts kicking her in her side. And I had grabbed Danny by his arm, and I said, stop, and he pushed me away, and he just kept kicking her. And then finally Garth and Zachary had said stop. And they finally stopped, and they had to pull Nicole off of her. And Vera could barely move. I imagine maybe she had broken ribs. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but at that time, I was so shaken up, and I was so scared. I was sitting on Sherry's bed, and I was just shaking really bad, and I was kind of out of it. I couldn't really understand what was going on around me, and my head was spinning. I don't know if maybe it was from seeing what they did, or from what was going on, or what, but I was just sitting there, and Sherry had given me a Xanax, I think it was. I took them before. I had a prescription for him, but I needed something to calm me down, and she told me to take that, and I said, it's not going to kill me, is it? Being smart, And she's like, no, it's not going to hurt you. And everything. And so I took it and I sat there and I had a glass of water in my hand, and Danny just starts kicking her again. And I'm just like, you guys really need to stop doing this. You really need to stop. And at that point, I started crying, like really bad. Ugh. And so, you know, then that's when Danny had grabbed the belt. I'm not sure if it was his belt or someone else's belt, but he had grabbed a belt. And the first time they started hitting her, it was just the belt. They had started hitting her with it on her back, on her head, and everything. And it was Nicole who started hitting her first, and then Danny did it. And then that's when he pulled the knife out and came at me with it and held it right here. And he kept telling me, do it now. Defend your man, whatever that meant, I didn't know. And so he pushed it closer to my neck, and I could feel the blade on my neck at that point. And I kept telling him, no, I can't do it. I've never hit anybody, and I can't do it. At that point, Zachary had grabbed a lock. It was like a gold lock, I think, off of the top of Sherry's, or no, it was the bike lock. Okay, it wasn't a lock, it was the piece that goes around the handlebars or something. And he had grabbed that and they put it on it. And Nicole had started hitting her with it first. And Danny kept pushing me towards her. And he kept pushing it further into my neck. So I grabbed it. And I just tapped her at first. And they didn't like it, so Danny grabbed my arm and he had swung my arm back and he made me throw my arm down. And after 2 times, I was like, no, I can't do this. So I dropped the belt and I moved back. And at that point, Vera was just laying there. And I didn't know what was going on. I had blacked out there for a second or 2, I think. And she was just, at that point, she was just holding her head like this, and she was just curled up in a ball again. And at that point, I went in the living room and I sat on the couch on the love seat, and I cried. I started crying because I've never hit anybody, and I didn't like it at all. And I wanted to turn around and I wanted to hit Danny. I really did. And I don't know why I didn't. And so I was sitting on the love seat. And then they tell Vera to go upstairs because there were cops outside for some reason, a fight down the street or something. And I guess they didn't want them to see her if they came to the house or something. So Danny took Vera upstairs, and he said that he made her lay on the floor. Just lay straight on the floor, did not touch anything. And they had the mace, and Danny had sprayed the mace on her.
Who had the mace? You said they.
Oh, Danny and Nicole. They both had it, and then Danny had taken it from Nicole, and he had sprayed Vera all over her eyes, everything. And that smell is just like, when you have asthma, it makes it really hard to breathe. So I was like panting, trying to breathe and stuff, and Danny had run downstairs and said that Vera had sprayed it, when I actually found out that it was Danny who sprayed it. And he was blaming everything on Vera, that she was the one that sprayed it. Well, I was having a hard time breathing. I couldn't breathe. My stomach was hurting really bad and everything. And I had went out to the hospital. Zachary and Garth had rode with me and Michael. And I had been out there for stomach pains and breathing problems. And then I had been feeling, nauseous and stuff that day, and I was feeling, this was early in the morning, I was feeling nauseous and hungry and everything, and of course, if you tell Sherry that, she automatically assumes that you're pregnant. She don't care if you're a girl or a guy, she assumes you're pregnant. So, they assumed. I never said anything about being pregnant to them. And all I said was, I feel like it. That's all I said to them. And then I went to the hospital that night, and, they did an ultrasound. There was nothing there. So, okay, I knew I wasn't. And the reason I was having stomach pains is because my chest was tightening up from the spray they had sprayed and everything. Well, after the hospital, I had went home, and we had went upstairs, and I walked in my room and I was talking to Michael, and our door was shut, and I had mentioned something about, there wasn't nothing there, that I wasn't pregnant, and Nicole lost it. She came in our room and she's like, "You lost the baby." I was like, "Whoa, I never said I was pregnant, I said I'm not." There was nothing there. And she's like, "Well, I don't care. She's gonna pay for what she did to you." And I'm like, "She didn't do nothing to me." And at that point, I wasn't thinking. I was on medicine from the hospital and everything. And then that's when Danny walks in, and he's like, "She's gone. She's dead. I'm gonna kill her." And I'm just like, whatever, I thought he was just kidding. I didn't think anything of it at the time. And with the medicine the doctor had put me on at the hospital, I was really woozy, and I was just like really dizzy and tired. And so, I thought, okay, it's just a joke. Nothing's gonna happen. So, I went downstairs and I told Sherry what the hospital had to say and everything, and I went in and I told her, just to make sure, so she knew that I wasn't pregnant and everything, and I told her, and then out of the glance of my eye, I turn around and Vera's in her room and she's getting her shoes on. And I was like, "Where are you going?" And Chucky was like, "Well, she has to go with Danny and Nicole." I said, "Well, where are they going?" And he's like, "They're just taking a walk." I was like, I'm really tired, I was half asleep through everything. And so Nicole goes in Vera's room and she grabs her by her arm and she takes her out on the porch. And I knew I should have gotten up and I should have called. And I didn't. And now she's not here. And they they had left, and when they had came back, they had blurted it out to everybody in that house what they had done to her. And all Nicole kept saying, "Well, she's gone. She's gone. You don't have to worry about it no more." Sherry was on her computer, typing, doing something. And she had walked up to Sherry and she said, "I got my first teardrop." And Sherry just looked at her and she started laughing. She just laughed at her. And then Sherry looked at me and she just smiled, and I looked away and I ran upstairs. And when me and Michael had went upstairs, I started crying. I said, "This can't be real. This can't be real." And I had went back downstairs to try and get the phone. Sherry was on the phone talking to somebody. I don't know who she was talking to. And I just went back upstairs and I laid down and I woke up, and that's when we came here the first time. And I should have said everything when I first came in here and talked. And I didn't. And now.
Okay. Well, you're here now, and that's what's important. So, just want to go back a little over some of the stuff. On that day when it was happening, and when they were getting ready to leave, who all left with Vera?
Danny and Nicole had left with her.
It was just the three of them.
Just the three of them. Chucky, as far as I know, was on the front porch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he came right back in, and that's when he told us that they had, they went for the walk.
Okay. And Chucky told you
Mm-hmm.
that they went for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Did Vera say anything to you?
No, all she said was, she kept saying, I don't want to go, it's too cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Vera when she was standing by the wall before they had taken her out of the house, I told her, just stay here. Don't go,
Mm-hmm.
Just stay here. Do not leave with them. She's like, if I don't, they're going to hurt me again. And I feel horrible because I didn't do anything. And Sherry was awake. Why didn't she say something? Why didn't she do anything? It's always on my mind. I just can't get it out of my head.
What about Danny or Nicole? Did they say anything to you before they left?
Nope, all they said was, we'll be back. That's all they said. And I just... they had said that they want to meet up with Vera's boyfriend, which was Larry.
Who said that?
Danny and Nicole had said that.
They both said it, or one of them said that? You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. it was Danny who said it,
Okay.
and Nicole had repeated it, I guess, after he had said it. Because she was like, yeah, Larry called. Or something like that.
Okay.
And then Vera said, she was like, well, I don't want to go. It's too cold. And then I just assumed that's where they were going. I guess I wasn't thinking.
So when Danny and Nicole came back, you said that they came in and just blurted out what they had done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This is where I want you to be specific of what was said and who said it specifically.
Okay. I was in the kitchen getting a bottle for loading, and Nicole had come up behind me, and she had put her arms around me, and she kept saying, it's done, it's over, no more. And I said, what are you talking about? Really shocked. I didn't know what she was talking about. And then she turns around and she says, it's done. I was like, what's done? And then she started explaining what they'd done, and she told me that they had taken a knife and they had stabbed her in the chest and her hurt, I think they said. They had shoved it up her
You can say it.
vagina, and that they had stabbed her repeatedly. They took her clothes off of her, and then that's when Danny stepped in and said that she's laying on the railroad tracks and she's naked. And I was just like, my mouth fell open, and I'm just like, oh my God. And then they had went into Sherry's room, Danny and Nicole, and that's when Nicole had walked up to Sherry and said it was done, it was over, and that she had gotten her first real teardrop. And Danny started laughing, and then they had told Sherry the same thing they had told me, all the details.
You heard him
Yes,
telling you?
I had heard them. And Sherry had turned around and faced Nicole, and she just shook her head like this. She just shook it up and down, and then she started laughing. Sherry did. And then she just turned around, back to the computer, and just started typing again. Didn't say nothing, didn't do nothing. Then she looked at me, smiled, turned around, back to her computer. And that was that.
So who all was there when they came back?
Me, Michael, I think Garth, Chucky, Garth's friend Alan, Kat, Scotty, Kevin, Sherry, and Zachary, and the baby.
It's pretty much everyone that was living.
Pretty much everyone, yeah.
Okay. And they were all awake yet?
Yeah, they were all in different rooms of the house.
Did sorry, I almost said Shannon. Did Nicole or Danny, make any statements as you said they were saying we did this. Did either of them make a statement of who did what?
They just said that we. They didn't say I or anything. They didn't tell us, who done it first, who ended it, who did what. All they said was we. I do know that Zachary was gonna go with them that night.
Okay.
He was gonna go with them until Sherry told him not to. So he stayed home.
How do you know he was going to go?
Because they didn't think I could hear him. But I was sitting on the couch when I heard Zachary say that I want to go. That's what Zachary said. He's like, I want to go. I want to go with them. And then Sherry said, no, you need to stay here. You have your daughter to think about. And so then it just ended up being Danny and Nicole who took her.
Was there more to that conversation that you heard?
That's all I heard. I mean, I didn't exactly hear everything that they had said. All I heard was Zachary saying, I want to go, or I want to go, He just kept saying it over and over. And he was like kind of not fighting, but arguing with Sherry about it. Mm-hmm. And that's when Sherry said, no, you have your daughter to think about.
Mm-hmm. So after they came back and all this stuff was said, what happened from that point?
After everything was said, the boys they went off and done their own thing, I guess. They went upstairs or something. And me and Michael had went upstairs in our room. We were watching TV, I think. And then we had fallen asleep. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, Danny, Nicole, Zachary, and Garth come barging in our room. And they're drunk. And I'm like, what is going on? And Danny had said that they went to his sister Desta's house and had gotten drunk. And all I was thinking was, okay, Garth and Zachary and Nicole are all underage. And they're drinking. And then, I was just like, I went downstairs for 5 minutes and all I heard was yelling and screaming because Danny's sister was outside yelling, telling him to come on and stuff. And Nicole had went into their room, which was actually Zachary's room, and passed out on the bed. Danny had grabbed her phone and a shirt, I think, and he had ran downstairs and had went with his sister. Sherry was still up on the computer, and I had went back upstairs and went back to bed. Michael had went downstairs to help get the boys, Zachary and Garth, to their rooms because they were puking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to help Sherry get him to bed. So, and then he finally went back to bed around 5 o'clock that morning.
So when we showed up, you remember that? Meaning the police officers initially that showed up. Did you talk to them at all? But were you awake when they were there?
I don't remember. All I remember is you guys, the detectives, showing up. That's all.
Okay.
I don't really remember the cops showing up there.
One other thing
Mhm.
that just kind of, when you said it today, it kind of surprised me because when I talked with you initially, and I don't think it's a huge deal, so don't freak out that I'm bringing it up, but as far as the pregnancy, what you told me today is quite a bit different from what you told me the first time around, okay? First time around, you told me that, you had done several self-pregnancy tests that showed you were pregnant and everything, and had been telling you were pregnant, and told the ER and everything that you were pregnant. The way you described it today is a little bit different. So, and I guess the only reason I'm bringing that up, my concern about that is, okay, when you're coming and telling me this stuff, what do I believe? Do you see what I'm saying? If you're sitting in my shoes,
Yeah.
you're in my place, that's the only concern I have over
Right,
that. Okay. So I don't know if you want to expand on that, which way we're going. I mean, we obviously know you weren't pregnant. I mean,
Yeah.
the medical records showed that and everything.
Mhm.
So, and again, it's not. I'm not trying to bind you up or anything like that. I just, as far as to know where we're at on this honesty level, I don't know where I'm at with the rest of what you're telling me today. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had taken, I think it was 2 or 3 home pregnancy tests. And I did tell the ER that, but they had done one at the hospital and it did come back negative.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I knew I wasn't.
Okay.
But the home, it's the problem with my system thingy. I get false negatives, I get false positives. It's just, there's a lot of, issues that I have, and I'm on a lot of medicine for it and everything, but
Okay.
I did forget to mention that today, but yes, I did do them at home and they were positive, but then when I went to the ER and told them what they had said, and they had done a blood test that had come back negative.
Mm.
So I, in fact, was not pregnant. So it's been like that for a very long time.
Excuse me. So, anything else that you can think of? You want to say? What's your report?
Nothing I can think of. I think I've pretty much said everything that I've been wanting to.
So Alan Cap was there.
Mm-hmm.
And when did he get there? Do you remember? And roughly, I mean, I don't expect you to remember.
Thinking it was. Thinking it was that night, or maybe. It was either that day or
Okay.
the day before.
But when they came home, when Danny and Nicole came back to the house,
Mhm.
you said Alan was there, correct?
Yes, he was there.
Okay. Would he have heard any of this stuff?
I don't know if he would have. I'm not sure where he was in the house. I was in the kitchen, so.
What about Zach?
Zachary was. I believe he was in his mom's room. He might have heard it. I'm not sure. But it's kind of, I think Zachary was in his mom's room because he's usually always on the bed watching TV when she's on the computer. So, and Michael was in the kitchen with me. Kevin was rolling cigarettes. Chucky was watching TV in the living room. And Scotty was upstairs. And I believe Alan was with Garth upstairs. Maybe, I'm not completely sure though.
Okay. All right. I can't think of anything else right now. I appreciate you coming down and talking and being honest with us. Anything
I can't think of
you
anything.
want to add? Okay. I don't know if there's something later. If I would have any questions, if you'd still be willing to talk, I would obviously go through Cindy and make sure that that's okay and everything. But you've got my number. If you call me, I'm gonna go through Cindy probably
Yeah.
just to make sure everything's okay. But you know where I'm at.
Mhm.
So because we're to that point. There was a couple times there where you tried contacting me and everything else, and then didn't come back up.
Yeah.
But I cannot seek you out at that point once you've asked for an attorney and everything. Okay, so I just want to make sure you understand that it's got to be, if you want to do it, you're the one that's going to have to make those, set those gears in motion. So with your attorney. So okay,
Okay.
all right. Anything for me? Not okay. Thank you.
I just noticed that cast zips. I've never seen
Yeah,
a
it's
zip.
I guess the new wave of things now.